On a chilly April morning in Denver, Colorado, memories of a long unsolved tragedy resurfaced for many, but none more so than for retired Detective Harold Simmons. It had been 20 years since the disappearance of Marissa Caldwell, a bright and ambitious 24-year-old woman whose life had been unexpectedly stolen. The case had haunted the department and the community for decades. Marissa's family never stopped searching for answers, their hope dimming but never extinguished. They kept old photographs, letters, and mementos in a carefully preserved box, revisiting them in moments of grief. Every anniversary of her disappearance rekindled the pain and uncertainty that had become an unwelcome part of their lives. Detective Simmons, now retired and living quietly outside the city, had carried the burden of Marissa's case like a ghost. At the time of her disappearance, he had been one of the lead investigators, poring over witness statements, searching the surrounding areas, and trying to follow every lead, no matter how small. He remembered the initial chaos, the unanswered calls, and the nights spent driving through neighborhoods, hoping to find a clue that could finally point them to Marissa. Even after retiring, he revisited files and notes, unable to let the case rest completely. Each lead that went cold added weight to the years he had spent chasing shadows, and each unsolved mystery gnawed at his conscience. The day that the arrest occurred, Simmons received a call from the current Denver Police Department. A suspect had been identified through a combination of DNA evidence and genealogy databases, a breakthrough that had not existed at the time of Marissa's disappearance. The call startled him, and he felt a mixture of relief and disbelief. It was almost surreal to think that a case that had eluded resolution for so long could suddenly be revived. He immediately returned to the department to view the evidence, examining reports, forensic results, and witness accounts with renewed intensity. It was like stepping back in time, but with a sense of purpose he had not felt in years. Marissa's family was notified shortly after, and the emotional impact was immediate. Her parents, siblings, and close friends had spent decades imagining what might have happened, holding on to hope even when despair seemed inevitable. The arrest of a suspect brought a mixture of elation and renewed grief, as memories of the day she vanished returned vividly. They attended the initial hearings, observing from the courtroom, and felt a mix of emotions as the prosecution laid out the evidence. Every photograph, report, and testimony was a reminder of what had been lost, but also of the possibility of finally receiving the answers they had long awaited. The investigation that led to the suspect, Thomas Reilly, was meticulous. Modern technology had allowed detectives to re-examine old DNA samples and match them with new data from genealogy databases, a tool unavailable in 2001. Reilly had long evaded suspicion, blending seamlessly into the community and avoiding any behavior that would have raised alarms at the time. The breakthrough occurred when a distant relative submitted their DNA for ancestry purposes, creating a familial connection that led detectives to Reilly. Forensic teams carefully retraced his movements from the time of Marissa's disappearance, compiling a chain of evidence that would eventually support the arrest. Each piece of the puzzle, once considered insignificant, now formed a coherent narrative. Witnesses were re-interviewed with modern techniques, prompting memories that had faded over decades to resurface. Some recounted subtle observations they had dismissed in 2001, now recognized as crucial details. Others provided corroborating accounts of Reilly's presence near locations tied to Marissa's disappearance. Investigators also uncovered minor records of Reilly's past behavior that had gone unnoticed, contributing to the growing profile of a man capable of a crime previously thought untraceable. The meticulous nature of the investigation highlighted the evolution of law enforcement, showing how persistence, technology, and careful review could transform cold cases into solvable mysteries. Detective Simmons was deeply involved in coordinating the final steps leading to Reilly's arrest. Though retired, he offered guidance, insight, and historical context to the current team, bridging the gap between past and present. His understanding of the case's nuances was invaluable, as he could point out inconsistencies, overlooked evidence, and critical witness statements that might otherwise have been ignored. The collaboration between retired and active detectives underscored the importance of institutional memory, showing that experience and fresh perspectives could work in tandem to achieve justice. Every discovery, every confirmation, and every small breakthrough brought Simmons a measure of relief that he had waited 20 years to experience. The arrest itself was dramatic but controlled. Reilly was apprehended at his residence without incident, and authorities ensured all evidence was meticulously documented. The surrounding community reacted with shock, as many had long assumed the case would never see resolution. News of the arrest spread quickly, sparking conversations about unsolved crimes, the advances in forensic science, and the persistence required to close cases that had been abandoned or forgotten. Families of other victims expressed cautious hope, seeing in this arrest the possibility that their loved ones might also finally receive answers. Even after decades of waiting, Marissa's parents, still grieving but strengthened by the news, worked to support the ongoing legal process. They met regularly with prosecutors and investigators, reviewing evidence and preparing for testimony. Their presence in court was a testament to their enduring commitment to justice. Their resilience, a powerful example for the community. They knew that while no verdict could bring Marissa back, holding the person responsible accountable would honor her life and provide a long-awaited resolution. Each hearing, each presentation of evidence, reminded them that persistence could finally overcome the injustice that had haunted them for so long. Throughout the community, reactions were mixed between relief and renewed sorrow. Neighbors remembered the initial shock when Marissa disappeared, the vigils, and the years of speculation. While some felt closure was finally achievable, others were reminded of the loss, and memories of the past were rekindled. Schools and local organizations discussed safety, the importance of vigilance, and the ways families could protect themselves and their communities. Conversations emerged not only about the crime but about the broader implications, emphasizing awareness, advocacy, and the lessons that could be drawn from one case's resolution after 20 long years. The media coverage of Reilly's arrest amplified public interest in cold cases and forensic advancements. Newspapers, television stations, and online outlets chronicled the history of Marissa's disappearance, the decades of uncertainty, and the breakthrough that finally led to an arrest. For young investigators, students, and the general public, the case served as a reminder that no crime is truly unsolvable, and that advances in science and technology can dramatically change outcomes. Even after many years, community meetings and panels were organized to discuss the case, ensuring lessons were shared and awareness raised for future prevention and rapid response to missing persons reports. Detective Simmons, reflecting privately, acknowledged the emotional toll of revisiting the case. He had experienced relief, sadness, and a complex mixture of satisfaction and melancholy. He knew that the arrest would not erase the past, nor heal the years of grief, but it represented an acknowledgement of the truth, a restoration of accountability, and a reaffirmation of the principles he had dedicated his life to upholding. Marissa's story, while tragic, now had a measure of justice, and the role he played, even after retirement, allowed him to feel that his dedication had not been in vain. The legal process continued carefully and methodically. Evidence collected from the time of Marissa's disappearance was reviewed, analyzed, and presented in a manner that could withstand scrutiny in court. Prosecutors worked diligently to build a strong case, ensuring that every detail was accounted for and that witnesses were prepared. The collaboration between old records and new forensic evidence demonstrated the evolution of criminal investigation techniques. It highlighted the importance of preserving evidence, documenting details, and continuously seeking truth. Even when the path was long and arduous, Marissa's family began the difficult process of confronting memories, revisiting old pain, and trying to reconcile decades of loss with the hope that justice was imminent. They spoke publicly about the importance of never giving up, of supporting law enforcement, and of maintaining belief in eventual resolution. Their advocacy became a source of inspiration for other families in similar situations, showing that patience and persistence could lead to answers even after many years. Community support grew, reinforcing the idea that individual tragedies could foster broader awareness, prevention, and solidarity. The days following Thomas Reilly's arrest were intense for everyone involved. Detectives worked tirelessly to piece together a timeline of Marissa Caldwell's last known movements. They traced her steps from the night she disappeared, reviewing old witness statements, photographs, and any lingering forensic evidence. Every detail, no matter how minor, was scrutinized, and modern technology allowed investigators to reanalyze evidence that had been nearly forgotten. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses was examined, even though it was rudimentary by today's standards, to establish Reilly's presence near the scene. Investigators hoped that the combination of old and new evidence would create a clear narrative to present in court. Solidifying the case against him, Marissa's family felt a mixture of emotions. The pain of reliving that night was intense, yet there was a renewed sense of hope. They revisited her apartment as investigators documented the space, searching for overlooked details. Each item, from a forgotten note to a personal belonging, was catalogued meticulously. These objects carried memories of Marissa's life, her dreams and her ambitions, making the investigation emotionally heavy. Her mother, Deborah, recalled Marissa's laugh, her determination, and her kindness toward others. Her father, Robert, reflected on the small daily routines they had shared before her disappearance. These memories, though painful, strengthened their resolve to see justice served. Detectives interviewed neighbors and co-workers once more. Memories faded over time, but careful questioning triggered recollections previously dismissed. One co-worker remembered seeing Reilly near Marissa's workplace in the days leading up to her disappearance, a detail that had not been verified in 2001. Another recalled a fleeting interaction that, at the time, seemed insignificant. These pieces of information, when combined with forensic evidence, created a clearer picture of the events surrounding Marissa's disappearance. Each revelation reinforced the importance of revisiting old cases with fresh eyes and new technology, proving that persistence and attention to detail could reveal truths once hidden. Reilly's background was carefully examined. He had lived quietly in Denver, maintaining a low profile, and had avoided situations that might draw suspicion. Investigators uncovered minor offenses from his past that, while not directly linked to Marissa, suggested patterns of behavior that raised red flags. Friends and acquaintances were interviewed, providing insights into his personality, habits, and routines. This helped detectives establish a timeline of his actions in April 2001 and confirm his potential opportunity to commit the crime. Each interview added depth to the case, showing how a comprehensive approach could strengthen the narrative of accountability. The forensic evidence was pivotal. DNA collected from Marissa's clothing and personal items, preserved by careful lab technicians in 2001, was re-examined using contemporary methods. Even decades-old samples yielded usable results, confirming a match to Reilly. Investigators cross-referenced these findings with genealogy databases, tracking distant relatives until a clear connection emerged. This combination of modern science and methodical detective work created a compelling case that linked Reilly to Marissa with undeniable certainty. The breakthrough underscored the value of maintaining evidence and revisiting cold cases with evolving forensic tools. Detective Simmons, although retired, continued to offer guidance. He provided context for patterns in Reilly's behavior, pointing out details that only someone familiar with the original investigation could recognize. His knowledge of the case's early stages helped new detectives navigate old witness statements, highlighting contradictions or supporting evidence. Simmons reflected on the contrast between the techniques available in 2001 and those used now. Technology, databases, and refined investigative methods had transformed the possibilities for solving cases once thought impossible. He recognized that justice achieved was a combination of persistence, modern tools, and the dedication of multiple generations of detectives. In the courtroom, preparations for the trial moved forward. Prosecutors carefully organized evidence, building a chronological account of events from Marissa's disappearance to the moment of Reilly's arrest. Witnesses were prepped to recount their testimonies, recalling interactions and observations from decades ago, with clarity aided by refreshed memories. Every document, photograph, and forensic report was presented to ensure accuracy and credibility. The goal was to construct an indisputable case that would demonstrate not only that Reilly had opportunity and motive, but that he had indeed committed the crime for which he was now charged. Marissa's friends and extended family rallied around her parents, offering support, reassurance, and companionship during the legal proceedings. Their presence was vital as the family faced the emotional weight of recounting painful memories in court. Each hearing brought a mixture of tension, grief, and hope, as the family witnessed the progress of justice. Community members attended the hearings, many of whom had remembered Marissa and her disappearance. The shared experience fostered a sense of unity, as residents collectively acknowledged the trauma and rejoiced in the steps toward accountability. Media coverage intensified. Local and national news outlets covered the story extensively, detailing the process that had led to Reilly's arrest. Journalists interviewed investigators, legal professionals, and family members, documenting the evolution of the case from its origin to its resolution. The coverage highlighted the breakthroughs in forensic science, the importance of preserving evidence, and the dedication required to solve cold cases. Public interest brought attention to other unresolved cases, inspiring renewed investigations and offering hope to families who had long endured uncertainty. Marissa's story became a symbol of the possibility of justice. Even after decades of waiting, forensic experts provided critical testimony. Lab technicians explained the methods used to extract and analyze DNA from decades-old samples, clarifying how the results matched Reilly conclusively. They described the evolution of technology that enabled such matches, illustrating how advancements in science could turn once cold cases into solvable mysteries. Their expertise helped the jury understand the reliability of the evidence, bridging the gap between complex technical processes and everyday understanding. This testimony reinforced the credibility of the case and bolstered the prosecution's argument. Meanwhile, investigators continued to explore the broader context of Reilly's actions. They examined his previous residences, known associates, and personal history, seeking any additional evidence or patterns that could inform the case. This comprehensive approach ensured that all angles were considered, leaving no stone unturned. Detectives cross-referenced historical records, employment history, and even travel logs to establish a full picture of Reilly's life and movements during the time surrounding Marissa's disappearance. The exhaustive nature of this review demonstrated the diligence required in high-stakes cases where decades of time had allowed memories to fade. Detective Simmons observed the process closely, reflecting on the years of effort it had taken to reach this point. He recalled the original investigation, the nights spent combing through neighborhoods, and the frustration of leads that led nowhere. The contrast between the past and the present was striking. Modern techniques, combined with the dedication of a new generation of detectives, had finally brought clarity. Simmons felt a profound sense of closure, knowing that his early work had laid the foundation for this resolution, and that Marissa's family could now experience a measure of justice. After years of uncertainty, Marissa's parents continued to engage with the community, speaking at events about the importance of vigilance, reporting suspicious activity, and supporting law enforcement. They emphasized that even when hope seemed dim, persistence and collaboration could lead to answers. Their advocacy created awareness, encouraged preventive measures, and honored Marissa's memory by turning tragedy into a platform for education and support. Friends and neighbors shared their own stories, reinforcing the message that community involvement could be crucial in resolving cases and ensuring public safety. As the trial date approached, tension and anticipation were palpable. The family, detectives, and legal teams prepared diligently, reviewing evidence, rehearsing testimonies, and strategizing for court proceedings. Each step brought them closer to the day when the truth would be formally acknowledged and accountability enforced. The careful, deliberate pace of the legal system ensured that justice would be administered fairly, while also respecting the gravity of the decades-old crime. Every detail mattered, and everyone involved understood the responsibility they carried in bringing the case to a just conclusion. The emotional toll of the trial preparations was immense, yet there was an underlying sense of purpose. For Marissa's family, each day spent revisiting the details of her life and disappearance was a step toward healing. For detectives, each piece of corroborating evidence represented validation of years of persistence. For the community, it was a reminder that truth could emerge even after many years. The combination of these elements created a narrative of resilience, determination, and the relentless pursuit of justice that would resonate far beyond the courtroom walls. The trial finally began on a brisk morning in Denver, and the courtroom was filled with a mixture of anticipation and tension. Marissa Caldwell's family sat together, hands clasped, drawing strength from one another. Detectives and legal teams occupied the front rows, prepared to present decades of painstaking work. The atmosphere was heavy with emotion. The community that had followed the case for years watched closely, eager to see justice served at last. Marissa's parents, Deborah and Robert, felt a mixture of relief and dread, knowing that recounting the painful details of her disappearance would reopen old wounds. Yet they also understood that this was a crucial step in finally honoring her memory and securing accountability. The prosecution opened the case with a chronological account of Marissa's disappearance. They described the night of April 12, 2001, painting a vivid picture of the ordinary evening that turned tragic. Marissa had left her workplace with plans to meet a friend, but she never arrived. Initial searches had yielded little, and early leads had gone cold. The narrative emphasized the emotional toll on her family and the relentless efforts of law enforcement to find answers. Every document, photograph, and witness statement from the original investigation was incorporated to create a comprehensive timeline. The jury absorbed these details carefully, recognizing the painstaking work that had persisted over 20 years. Witness testimonies added human depth to the case. Friends described Marissa's personality, her laughter, and her compassion, painting the portrait of a young woman full of promise. They recalled her daily routines, her work ethic, and her dreams, making it clear that her absence had left a significant void in the lives of those who loved her. Neighbors recounted fleeting interactions, remembering details that had seemed insignificant at the time but gained meaning in the context of the trial. Each recollection reinforced the reality of the crime and the injustice of the long period during which Marissa's fate had been unknown. The forensic evidence was central to the prosecution's argument. DNA analysis that had been unavailable in 2001 was now presented in detail, demonstrating conclusively that Reilly was connected to Marissa. Expert witnesses explained the modern techniques used to extract and analyze decades-old samples, describing how even minute traces had yielded a match. The jury was guided through the process of DNA comparison, the reliability of the methods, and the rigorous standards maintained by forensic laboratories. These explanations translated complex scientific data into comprehensible terms, ensuring that the evidence was both persuasive and credible. Detectives who had worked on the cold case provided testimony as well. They described the initial investigation, the frustration of unproductive leads, and the hope that kept them moving forward. They recounted their efforts to locate witnesses, preserve evidence, and revisit clues with new technology. One detective emphasized the emotional and professional significance of reopening the case, noting that each resolved cold case affirmed the importance of diligence, patience, and the belief that justice could prevail even after many years. Their testimony reinforced the credibility of the investigation and illustrated the persistence required to reach the trial stage. Reilly's defense team attempted to challenge the DNA evidence, questioning the preservation of samples and the methods used in analysis. However, forensic experts systematically addressed each concern, demonstrating the integrity of the evidence and the reliability of modern techniques. They explained how protocols for handling and storing samples ensured minimal contamination and maximum accuracy, leaving the jury with little reason to doubt the validity of the findings. The defense also questioned witnesses about the reliability of long-term memory, but careful cross-examination by the prosecution highlighted the consistency and corroboration across multiple sources, strengthening the case against Reilly. Throughout the trial, Marissa's family remained engaged and composed. Each day brought new testimonies, documents, and exhibits, slowly reconstructing the events surrounding her disappearance. Their strength inspired those around them, reminding everyone in the courtroom of the human cost of unresolved crimes. Friends and community members continued to attend, bearing witness to the process and offering support. The presence of the community reinforced the broader significance of the case. illustrating that Marissa's story was not only about personal loss, but also about the collective pursuit of justice and the reassurance that accountability could be achieved. No matter how much time had passed, emotional testimony from Marissa's parents highlighted the enduring impact of her absence. They described the countless holidays, birthdays, and milestones that were shadowed by grief. They shared memories of her favorite activities, her aspirations, and the small, ordinary moments that had defined her life. This human element was critical to the trial, providing context beyond the forensic evidence and legal arguments. The jury was reminded that the case was about more than abstract details. It was about a real person whose life had been stolen and whose family had suffered for decades. The prosecution also focused on the patterns of behavior exhibited by Reilly in 2001. They presented evidence from his background, interviews with acquaintances, and documented interactions that established a profile consistent with the crime. They connected his presence near Marissa's apartment, his movements on the night of her disappearance, and corroborating witness statements to create a compelling narrative of opportunity and intent. Each detail, carefully linked, reinforced the conclusion that Reilly had both the motive and the means to commit the crime, leaving the jury with a clear and persuasive case. As the trial progressed, the defense struggled to offer alternative explanations. Their attempts to create doubt were consistently met with concrete evidence and expert testimony. Witness accounts, DNA analysis, and investigative records combined to form a coherent and unshakable argument for Reilly's guilt. The jury was presented with decades of work distilled into a precise and compelling narrative, demonstrating the power of persistence, modern forensic science, and meticulous investigative work. Each day in court brought them closer to a resolution that had seemed impossible for 20 years. Closing arguments were delivered with clarity and conviction. The prosecution summarized the evidence, emphasizing the DNA match, the witness testimonies, and the meticulous investigative process. They highlighted the enduring commitment of law enforcement and the community, framing the trial as the culmination of decades of dedication. The defense attempted one final appeal to doubt, but the overwhelming weight of evidence left little room for uncertainty. Jurors were instructed carefully, with the judge emphasizing the importance of considering all evidence objectively, weighing both the scientific and human aspects of the case. After deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict. The courtroom held its breath as the foreperson stood and announced that Thomas Reilly was guilty of the murder of Marissa Caldwell. The announcement was met with a mixture of relief, tears, and quiet celebration. Marissa's family embraced, overwhelmed by the realization that justice had finally been achieved. Detectives and prosecutors shared a sense of accomplishment, knowing that years of hard work had culminated in a just outcome. The community, too, felt a collective sense of closure, recognizing that the truth had finally prevailed. The aftermath of the trial included ongoing support for Marissa's family and the community. Counseling and resources were provided to help them process the emotional intensity of the proceedings. Media coverage highlighted the resolution of the case, emphasizing the breakthroughs in forensic science and the importance of revisiting cold cases. Public interest in cold case investigations increased, inspiring law enforcement agencies to re-examine unresolved cases with renewed commitment. Marissa's story became a symbol of perseverance, illustrating how dedication, modern technology, and relentless pursuit of truth could overcome decades of uncertainty. Detective Simmons, now retired, reflected on the journey with a mixture of pride and solemnity. He recalled the long nights, the moments of doubt, and the satisfaction of seeing justice achieved. His experience underscored the value of persistence, collaboration, and the continual advancement of investigative techniques. He emphasized that each solved case served as both a closure for victims' families and a lesson for law enforcement, demonstrating that no matter how much time had passed, answers could still be found. The resolution of Marissa Caldwell's case reinforced his lifelong belief in the importance of unwavering dedication to justice. In the weeks following the verdict, the family worked to honor Marissa's memory. They established a scholarship in her name to support young women pursuing higher education, ensuring that her legacy would have a lasting impact. Community events were organized to raise awareness about the importance of reporting crimes, preserving evidence, and supporting victims' families. Marissa's friends and neighbors participated, sharing stories and memories that celebrated her life and the joy she brought to those around her. These initiatives transformed the tragedy into a source of hope, education, and community resilience, providing a positive legacy in the wake of years of grief. The resolution of this case also had broader implications for law enforcement. Investigators documented the strategies, challenges, and breakthroughs of the case to create a framework for solving other cold cases. Training programs incorporated lessons learned, emphasizing the integration of modern technology with traditional investigative methods. The case demonstrated the critical importance of preserving evidence, maintaining detailed records, and approaching old cases with fresh perspectives. It became a model for how patience, persistence, and science could converge to deliver justice, inspiring future generations of detectives to continue the fight for truth. Finally, Marissa Caldwell's story served as a reminder to the community of the enduring impact of crime on families and the importance of hope. Her parents, supported by friends and neighbors, continued to share her memory and advocate for justice. The resolution of the case brought a sense of peace, though the absence of Marissa was still profoundly felt. The journey from uncertainty to accountability illustrated the power of resilience, determination, and the collective efforts of law enforcement, legal professionals, and the community. In the end, justice was not only served, but became a symbol of the possibility of closure, even after decades of waiting.